Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we are going to be talking about The Blue Umbrella by Ruskin Bond. And we've got a couple sources here that break down the plot and some themes, even some cultural context. So are you ready to jump into the Garwhal Hills with me and learn about a girl named Binya?
Oh, absolutely. This novella, though short and simple in its prose, really packs a punch, I think, in terms of symbolism and deeper meaning.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
So to kick things off, can you just kind of walk us through the very beginning? How does this blue umbrella even come into the story?
Well, the story starts with our main character, Binya, who is a very spirited and clever young girl. And she encounters a group of tourists picnicking up in the hills. And they have all sorts of fascinating things with them. But what really catches Binya's eye is this bright blue umbrella. Just imagine this vibrant splash of color against the more muted tones of the village landscape.
Yeah, I bet that was quite a novelty in that area, a
Oh.
blue umbrella. I can definitely see how it would catch a young girl's imagination.
Exactly. And Binya, being the clever girl that she is, she notices that the tourists are pretty fascinated by her lucky leopard's claw pendant. And so a barter ensues, and Binya, drawn to the allure of this beautiful blue umbrella, she trades her pendant for it.
So right from the start, we see this theme of exchange and maybe even a little bit of foreshadowing with her giving up something that represents luck and tradition.
Mm.
What does this new possession mean for her?
Well, the blue umbrella pretty quickly becomes her prized possession, her constant companion. It's more than just an object to her. It symbolizes joy and novelty, and I think a little bit of pride, too. And of course, this being a small village, it doesn't take long for the umbrella to become the talk of the town.
Oh, I bet it caused quite a stir.
Yeah.
How do the villagers react to her new treasure?
Well, it's a mixed bag, really. There's admiration and curiosity, of course, but as you might imagine, there's also some envy that creeps in, particularly with one shopkeeper named Ram Bharosa, who becomes quite fixated on acquiring the umbrella for himself.
Ooh, that sounds like trouble.
Yeah.
What kind of a character is this Ram Bharosa?
So Ram Bharosa owns the village tea shop, and he's described as being rather well off. He represents, in a lot of ways, the more materialistic side of human nature, I think. And so the blue umbrella for him becomes a symbol of status, something that he just desperately wants to possess.
So Binya's kind of innocent delight versus Ram Bharosa's acquisitive desire. It sounds like we've got a really great setup for conflict here. How does this clash of personalities play out? What does Ram Bharosa do to try to get this umbrella?
Well, initially he tries to buy it from her, offers her, money, sweets, anything to convince her to part with this umbrella. But Binya, bless her heart, she is fiercely attached to this blue umbrella, and she refuses all of his offers.
Good for her. She sounds like she's got a strong sense of self. I can only imagine that that just makes Ram Bharosa all the more determined, though.
You're absolutely right. His desire just turns into this obsession, and his attempts to get the umbrella become increasingly desperate and even comical at times. He tries to manipulate Binya's brother Biju with promises of treats and a job, hoping to use him as a means to get to the umbrella. He even tries to bribe one of Binya's school friends to steal it for him.
Wow, talk about tunnel vision. Poor Binya. This blue umbrella is bringing her a lot more trouble than joy. Does anyone come to her aid?
Well, luckily for Binya, Biju is a good kid. He helps his mother out with their farm work and sees right through Ram Bharosa's manipulations, and even warns Binya about the shopkeeper's intentions.
It's good to know she has someone in her corner, but it seems like the drama is really just getting started. So what happens next in this, tug of war over the blue umbrella?
Well, one day, while Binya is taking a nap, a strong wind sweeps through the village and carries her precious umbrella away.
Oh, no.
She's devastated, of course, and sets out on this determined search to find it.
I can only imagine how heartbroken she must have been. That umbrella clearly came to represent so much more than just its material value to her.
Exactly. And her journey to find the umbrella becomes almost symbolic of a larger quest. This search for something that she may have lost sight of in all this commotion.
This sounds like a real turning point.
Yeah.
Binya is starting to question her attachment to the umbrella, and Ram Bharosa is just spiraling deeper into his obsession. So what happens next?
Well, remember those tourists that Binya encountered at the beginning of the story?
The ones she got the umbrella from, do they come back into play?
They do. And their return coincides with another crucial event. The villagers find Binya's lost umbrella.
Oh, wow.
They bring it back to her, much to her relief, and it seems like all is well again.
So the blue umbrella is back in Binya's possession,
Hmm.
much to Ram Bharosa's disappointment, I imagine. Is this where his obsession finally starts to fade?
Unfortunately not. He sees the tourists admiring the umbrella, and he decides to make one final, desperate attempt to acquire it for himself. He offers them a significant sum of money. like way more than the umbrella is actually worth. And the tourists, tempted by this offer, they agree to buy it from Binya.
So even after all that, her happiness is threatened again. How does she react to this?
Well, remember how I mentioned there was a little bit of a shift in Dinya? The search for her umbrella and all the chaos that ensued, really led her to kind of reassess what truly matters to her. She's matured a bit beyond that initial fascination with the object itself.
Right. It's like the umbrella served as this catalyst for her growth.
Yeah.
So does she give in and sell it?
She does, but with a twist. She accepts the money from the tourists, but then in this act of incredible generosity, she turns around and gives the umbrella to Ram Bharosa.
Wow. What motivates her to do that?
I think it's a combination of factors. She sees that yearning in Ram Bharosa's eyes, the desperation that has kind of made him this figure of pity in the village, and I think she understands the hold that the umbrella has on him, but she also senses the sadness that comes with, such an obsessive desire.
It sounds like she's learned a really valuable lesson about the fleeting nature of material possessions and the importance of compassion. So after all his scheming, Ram Bharosa finally gets what he wants. Does this bring him the happiness that he was craving?
Well, that's where the story takes another interesting turn. He's initially stunned, almost disbelieving. He even checks the coin that Binya uses to buy a chocolate from him, just to make sure that it's real.
I can only imagine what a mix of emotions he must be feeling. Shame, confusion, maybe even a little bit of gratitude.
Absolutely. It's a pivotal moment for him. Binya's selfless act, it forces him to confront the ugliness of his obsession. And for a while, he actually hides the umbrella away, almost ashamed to display it after all the trouble he caused.
Makes sense. He wouldn't find immediate joy in something that he kind of acquired through such, underhanded means. Does he eventually come to terms with his actions?
He does. And it's not because he finally possesses the umbrella, but because of the impact that Binya's kindness has on him. It's a slow transformation, but he starts to reflect on his behavior, and he realizes how his greed and envy have isolated him from the community. He starts treating his customers with more respect, offering help to those in need, almost like he's trying to make amends for his past actions.
So Binya's generosity acts as a catalyst, not only for Ram Bharosa's personal growth, but for a restoration of harmony in this village.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the ripple effect of kindness.
It really does. And the story offers this beautiful, symbolic resolution to this transformation. One day, Ram Bharosa finds a bear claw outside his shop.
A bear claw. Why is that significant?
Bear claws, even more so than leopard claws, are considered very lucky in this Garwhal region.
Ah, I see. So it represents a shift from that coveted leopard claw that Binya traded away in the very beginning. It's a new kind of luck, one that's not tied to material possessions, but to positive change and self-awareness.
Exactly. And so Ram Bharosa, he has this bear claw fashioned into a pendant and gives it to Binya as this token of gratitude and newfound understanding.
That's a perfect ending. It brings the story full circle and highlights how Binya's act of kindness has not only changed Ram Bharosa, but also ushered in this new kind of abundance into his life.
And what I find so compelling is how Bond doesn't shy away from the complexities of human nature. He portrays greed, envy, materialism, but ultimately emphasizes the potential for redemption and the transformative power of generosity.
It's a reminder that, our choices have consequences, but it's never too late to choose kindness and change our course. Even a simple object like a blue umbrella can become this powerful symbol, reflecting our desires, our flaws, and ultimately our capacity for growth.
Yeah, it really is a story that resonates on so many different levels. And while the blue umbrella is set in, this specific cultural context, do you think its themes have a more universal appeal? Could something as simple as a blue umbrella still hold that same significance in our lives today? Absolutely. It's fascinating to think about how that blue umbrella acts as such a powerful symbol and a representation of, our desires and the lengths we'll go to try and fulfill them. It doesn't have to be an umbrella, of course. Think about what are our blue umbrellas in the modern world?
That's a great question. I guess it could be anything that we perceive as representing status or happiness.
Yeah.
That new gadget or that designer handbag or, that perfect house. Things we kind of convince ourselves that we need to feel complete.
Exactly. And the blue umbrella, it encourages us to examine those desires a little more closely. Are we seeking true fulfillment, or are we chasing after these empty symbols that ultimately leave us feeling just as empty?
Yeah. It's such a timely message, especially in a world that's constantly bombarding us with messages about what we should want, what we should buy to be happy.
Right. And this story, it encourages us to kind of pause and reflect, to consider, the impact that our desires have on ourselves and on the people around us. Are we building, genuine connections, or are we creating these walls of envy and competition?
The blue umbrella, it really does offer a path forward, doesn't it? It shows that, even when we make mistakes that are driven by envy or greed, there's always room for redemption through kindness and generosity.
Absolutely. It reminds us that our choices matter and that even small acts of compassion can have a ripple effect, you know, transforming not only our own lives, but the lives of those around us as well.
So for anyone listening who hasn't yet had a chance to experience the charm of The Blue Umbrella, I highly recommend giving it a read. It really is a story for all ages, a story that will make you think, make you smile, and perhaps even re-examine your own blue umbrellas.
And who knows, maybe it'll inspire you to spread a little more kindness and generosity out there in the world.
That's a beautiful sentiment to end on. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into The Blue Umbrella. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep seeking out those treasures that truly matter.